Hello, Asheville and beyond. Welcome to our listeners and viewers of our video live stream. Welcome to WPVM's Asheville City Council Candidate Forum. For today, we'll be airing part one of a two-part forum with three candidates vying for three open seats on the council. Today's candidates are Kevin Frazier, Roney, and Roberto Hess, also known as Bo Hess. Part two will be tomorrow, live at 11 a.m. with candidates Todd Levin, Sage Turner, Charles Domingo. Each candidate will have the opportunity to share their vision for Asheville and answer questions to pressing local issues. Three council members will be elected from this total of six candidates in this election cycle. Welcome, Dr. Cooper. Thank you much for moderating, and welcome candidates for participating.
Thanks so much for having us. I want to say at the outset, it takes a lot of people to make these things happen, and it takes local media to care enough to put this kind of information out for voters, right? We're clearly in a world of nationalized media coverage, nationalized politics. In fact, Donald Trump's coming to town tomorrow to Asheville. It seems like it's all people can talk about. But what really matters is what's happening here at the local levels, at the state levels. And so I really appreciate the power of local media to inform us and appreciate this forum. Also want to thank everybody, obviously, for listening and for taking your vote seriously in this very, very important election. And I want to thank the candidates. I don't think we spend nearly enough time in American politics thanking the people who are willing to put themselves out there, to take their time, to take sometimes even some of their own money, and to run for office to try to make our community better. And we've got six folks running. We've got, of course, two of these forums. We're doing three today. And then we'll have another three. And then ultimately, as Dabney said, we're going to select three candidates. And I'm confident that given the strength of the field that we're going to have three good candidates. Also want to remind people that absentee ballots are going to go out starting September 6th, 2024. They're going to run, of course, a little longer, but that's the first day they'll be mailed out. Early voting is going to run October 17th through November 2nd. And then election day itself is November 5th. And this is also the deadline to get in mail ballots. That's a little bit of a change from the past. So I hope folks are paying attention to that. We are going to start with 3-minute opening statements in just a second. We did a random draw to figure out who goes first, and I'll sort of work that through in a second. But after the opening statements are done, we'll then rotate through candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the questions that come after that. And there's an opportunity for rebuttal. So if somebody's name gets mentioned, if somebody's other position gets mentioned, they'll, of course, have the opportunity to weigh back in. And we're going to be here for about an hour. So welcome. And with all that out of the way, we're going to, in order, go with Kevin Frazier for 3 minutes. Then we will go with Kim Roney for 3 minutes, and then Bo Hess for 3 minutes. So Kevin Frazier, you may start.
Hello, neighbors. My name is Kevin Frazier, and I'm excited to be running for Asheville City Council. I'm a 9th-generation native of Buncombe County, a descendant of dairy farmers. I've been a career-long educator teaching history and serving as an administrator at both UNC Asheville and Western Carolina University. Today, I head up WCU's satellite campus in Biltmore Park, and I serve as the university's lead community and economic development person in Metro Asheville, where I work closely with the Economic Development Coalition to bring high-paying jobs to the city. I'm also a small business owner at co-owned Well Played Board Game Cafe downtown. I know what it's like to make a payroll every week, and the challenges of opening and maintaining a small business in Asheville's outdated and outmoded bureaucracy. From my work in public higher education to running a small business, I'm a coalition builder who's experienced in reaching across the political aisle to find common ground for mutual success. I grew up in Asheville very different than today. It was a city on the brink of collapse, which emerged in my lifetime as one of the great success stories in downtown revitalization. We weren't pioneers per se, but brought together great ideas, tools, and resources which transformed Asheville. And I believe that's the opportunity that's in front of us today. Together, I want us to build an Asheville in which all residents feel welcome, safe, and know they belong. Let's build an Asheville in which our neighbors feel heard, seen, and respected. Let's build an Asheville in which all residents find meaningful and prosperous work, enjoy a reasonable cost of living, and benefit from careful environmental stewardship and equitable treatment. My focus on City Council would first and foremost be the revision of our Unified Development Ordinance. It's outdated, outmoded, and our greatest barrier to building affordable housing. Hand in hand is multimodal transportation network that let folks travel by the tools that works best for them, no matter where they live. And a transit system that is countywide and truly gets people from their home to work and back again. I want to ensure that our city services are properly funded and supported. When you turn your water faucet on, water should come out. When you call 911, there should be enough firefighters and police to respond to your call. And we need to take care of our neighbors, all of our neighbors. Homelessness is a complex issue that starts with having enough housing inventory for all, but includes a coordinated system of agencies and services to help folks struggling with health issues that often lead them to be unhoused. This is my first time running for public office. I was inspired to run because of Asheville's long history of people stepping up to serve their city, and I figured I needed to step up too. My name is Kevin Frazier, a neighbor looking to work with our neighbors to build a truly amazing city that's a great place for everybody to call home.
Great. Thank you, Kevin Frazier. Now we'll go to Kim Roney.
Hello, friends and neighbors. Kim Roney here, and I'm running for re-election to Asheville City Council. My partner and I moved here in 2006, and I have deep roots here as my great-grandmother was born in Kenilworth in 1910. I'm a community organizer with 20 years experience in community radio, and I was actually a DJ and the music director at WPVM. This is my 25th year as a music educator. So there are new voters in this election that I've worked with since they were in kindergarten. They are one of the most important reasons why I'm running, to share in the work to take better care of the people of Asheville and our mountain home. So many in Asheville are struggling to make ends meet as the cost of living rises, while unchecked tourism and for-profit development strain our natural resources, burden our infrastructure, and displace our most vulnerable neighbors. And it's a matter of priorities, right? If we ensure this is a great place to live and work, it'll be a great place to visit too. I'm one of your current council members. I have the courage to say no, and I'm committed to saying yes to affordability, to public safety that works for everyone, and to climate and neighborhood resiliency. This means deeply affordable housing and keeping our utilities in check. It means fair water rates. Public safety looks like sending the right person with the right tools and training to times of crisis around homelessness, substance use, and behavioral health. And climate and neighborhood resiliency means leading on urban forestry. As your neighborhood liaison, I am pushing back against hotel encroachment. Implementing the Climate Justice Initiative in our neighborhood plans is key, and working closely with our Reparations Commission. You can get more information on what I'm running on and how I've already been leading on City Council at kimroneyforasheville.com.
Great. Thank you so much. And we'll go third to Bo Hess, please.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Asheville. Thank you, WPVM and Devine. Thank you, Dr. Cooper, for this opportunity to be here. My name is Bo Hess. I am running for Asheville City Council. I am a social worker, a therapist, addiction specialist, law enforcement trainer. I am a volunteer, a part-time teacher, and really problem solver. And I'm running for Asheville City Council because we have some very serious challenges ahead of us. Crime and safety, affordability, housing, homelessness, addressing our mental health and addiction issues. And those are precisely the things that my profession and my experience equips me to deal with. You know, every day I work with people to deal with very large issues in their life. And I've never asked them, are you a Democrat, Independent, or Republican? But I have sat with them and worked to find practical solutions that will have positive impacts on their life. And that's exactly what I commit to doing for every single resident of Asheville. I'm also laser focused on our environment and making sure that we have community spaces. And this is an exciting time in our country and especially in our city for politics. We can elect city leaders and build a coalition on council that can get things done that are priorities for young people, for underrepresented people, and for the working people out there. Learn more at electbohess.com. I'm excited to see everybody out on the trail, and thank you so much so far for your support. This has been an awesome experience, and I'm just so grateful to be in this race. And thanks again.
Great. Thanks to all three of you for thoughtful opening statements. We'll go to our first question, and here that will go first to Kim Roney, and then it will go to Bo Hess, and then it will go to Kevin Frazier. So we hear a lot in the media about Asheville and crime. So does Asheville have a crime problem? And how should the city council approach criminal justice in the city? So we'll begin with Kim Roney.
When we have issues with crime in our community, it impacts us on a personal level. It impacts our neighborhoods and our families, and it impacts all of us. So one of the things that really concerns me is that we are so fully invested in limited amounts of crime response that we have not yet gotten serious about our investment in crime prevention. Some ways that we can do that right now. We have strategic partnership funds. We should expand those. I made a recommendation that was fully unanimously supported by the Equity Engagement Committee of Council to increase the strategic partnership funds. That can help to reduce violence among our youth with the relational response that's proven to work. We can also more effectively address behavioral health crisis, homelessness crisis, and substance use crisis by making sure we're sending the right person with the right tools and training for those crises by partnering with the community paramedics at the county level. We are seeing a gap solution filled by sending our firefighters to do community responder work. Community responders are very different than community paramedics because community paramedics have a specific skill set that allows us to help folks that are medically non-compliant. But I really appreciate that our firefighters are standing in the gap during this moment. And we can also get to the root causes of homelessness and the root causes that create crime in the first place, the root causes of poverty. When we see the impact of a lack of affordable housing in our community, we know that that creates families and individuals that are in desperate situations. So while we address the crime that's happening in our community, and specifically, I'm thinking about the gun violence that's impacting our youth, I also want to make sure that we're getting ahead of it and preventing it from happening in the first place.
Great. Thank you. Bo Hess. Bo Hess. Okay, I think Bo has left the building, but we're going to assume that he's just having some technical difficulties, and we'll just jump to Kevin Frazier and adjust a little on the back end. So, Kevin Frazier, same question to you.
Sure thing, Chris. Asheville does have a crime problem, but it's not to the level that we'll hear sort of glorified in certain national media. There's not blood running in the gutters of Asheville. Some of that's been definitely changed, that narrative changed to be able to put some blame on Asheville for its political leanings, for having an all-female city council. None of those are right, good, reasonable approaches. First and foremost, city council has to make sure that our police department is well-funded, well-staffed, and well-trained to take care of all of our folks, to respond in appropriate ways when the community calls and needs help. I want folks, when they pick up the phone and they call 911, that they can get the help that they need. I think it's really important that we have the right person responding to the right call. The Community Responders Program is a great example of that. Another one coming up is there's now consideration about being able to authorize folks to help do assessments at accidents and write up the reports for accidents. You know, we don't need to have police officers, armed, sworn folks doing all of these jobs. It's about getting the right person to the right job. As the city continues to invest to help get the police department back to its pre-pandemic levels, that becomes important, that we're paying people the right pay and that we are doing the things to manage wage compression so that folks will want to stay with us and spend their career on the force. My grandfather was a member of the Asheville Police Department as a beat officer and then for 20 years as a detective. He was really proud for that service to Asheville. We have a great leadership in our police department today, and we want to continue to grow that, as well as all of the community components that also let folks take that within their own hands. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks. And Bo Hess, we'll go to you next, please.
Regardless of crime, we still have too much crime in Asheville. And when I'm knocking on doors and I'm meeting with people, people generally have felt less unsafe being downtown and in general. And increasing police presence can deter crime in specific areas. But as a public health care worker and as a social worker, I see policing as really just one part of a broader strategy to enhance community safety in Asheville. A safe community allows all members to thrive. And I look at this from a systemic, holistic approach. So first, I want to thank all the first responders that are out there every day working to support our most vulnerable people in our community. And we must equip our law enforcement and first responders with the training to address these needs. We must invest in public safety infrastructure, more street lighting, more community centers and school programs, after school programs, summer school programs, invest in our pools, enhance community spaces and parks and greenways, and offer comprehensive youth programs. I got to tour the East End Asheville Neighborhood Community Center just the other day, and what an awesome space and an awesome thing that they're doing over there for our youth. And we also need appropriate crisis response to our mental health crisis and addiction crisis. And I am proud to have trained our first responders, community paramedics, and law enforcement officers for the past, 10, 12 years now. In fact, I have a training this week. I'll be training Asheville Police Department. I have a training next month in September where we're training McDowell Police Department. So I am a person who puts my actions where my values are, and I show up. And all of these techniques and strategies are an integral part of a balanced approach to safety. And with the right coalition on council, we can make these things happen for the most vulnerable of our community. Vote Bo Hess, November 5th.
Great. Well, thank you so much to all three of you. It's interesting, as I was listening to your answers, all three of you touched in some way on the ways in which crime, or perceptions of crime anyway, are tied to affordable housing. And so it sort of works naturally that the next question I had planned was about affordable housing. So on this one, we'll go Bo Hess, then Kevin Frazier, and then Kim Roney. Does Asheville have an affordable housing problem? How should the city council approach housing policy in the city? And I'll sort of ask if all three of you can please try to address both parts of the question. Does Asheville have an affordable housing problem? How should the city council approach housing policy in the city? Bo Hess, we'll return right back to you.
Absolutely. Yes, without a doubt. Asheville has a housing affordability problem. In fact, I'm the only renter in this race. This is something that, affects me directly. How do we address this? One, we update and work to provide practical changes to our zoning ordinances where applicable. And we can talk about some of those specifics, but then also empowering the city staff and entrusting them with city council's vision to approve developments. We lost around 1,300 units just last year because developers did not want to develop in Asheville due to politics, quite frankly. So we must reduce the burden for housing to be built. Delayed housing is denied housing. Also, we need to increase housing stock across the spectrum. So from low barrier shelters to transitional housing to studios, 1 bedrooms, duplexes and apartments, to single family homes, and then 3-bedroom houses and apartments and higher end homes. And the reason for that is, people on higher end incomes can afford to move down in housing, but often we cannot afford to move up. Also, increasing our safety net and our eviction protections, making sure that we have down payment and rental deposit assistance. And let's go one step even further. Let's make sure that our underrepresented communities are buying houses and have safe homes to live in. So let's work with local credit unions and banks to look at more than just credit score when giving out loans for housing. Let's increase education programs in our underrepresented neighborhoods for underrepresented people, for the options that are out there to own a home. Let's increase our housing repair program, right? These are all things that we can do.
Great. Thank you so much. We'll go to Kevin Frazier next.
We absolutely have an affordable housing problem. We have an affordable housing crisis, and with that, we have an inventory crisis. We do not have enough housing for the folks that are here, no less folks that are moving into the area as well. I think first and foremost, City Council needs to focus its efforts on revising the Unified Development Ordinance, the UDO. This was set in 1997 and really favored single-family homes. In fact, more than 7,000 lots were made such that they couldn't become anything but single-family homes moving forward. There's been very little adjustment to the UDO since 1997. This is the important work that Council has a great deal of control over. That work should happen immediately to work on things like flag lots and accessory dwelling units that can immediately create some changes to make more stock available, but then also looking at it in the long term for the so-called missing middle part, the duplexes, triplexes, the semi-detached, things that are standard parts of our neighborhoods and were for more than a century. And now over the past 30 some years, we've stopped letting them be built in our neighborhoods. That's important work that we've got to do. We've also got to adjust our processes by which builders develop new housing in Asheville. Talking to some of the builders and some of the attorneys that work with them, Asheville takes nearly 4 times as long to get a project online than other North Carolina cities. And because of that, a lot of builders really avoid Asheville and don't want to build here. Folks that have really great backgrounds in building affordable housing. That's what their focus is not building luxury housing, but building affordable housing. Also, City Council's got to do the work when it's working on particularly conditional zoning to require that there be affordable units at not only 80% of area median income, but also at 60 and 40 and even 30%. Those need to be baked into our ordinances and into our regulations so that we can make sure that everybody has the availability of housing.
Great. Thank you so much. And Kim Roney.
Yes, we absolutely do have a housing crisis. And the rent costs too much. So do utilities, groceries, childcare, and transportation. That's why I remain committed to representing working, poor, and compassionate people so that everyone benefits with a healthy housing ecosystem. This looks like investing in economic stability and mobility for renters and homeowners through creative cooperative solutions, including deeply affordable housing, displacement prevention, eviction protection, rent stabilization incentives, down payment assistance, and partnership to keep neighbors from becoming unhoused. It looks like reducing transportation costs by increasing transportation choices, coordinating with the county for a Buncombe-Asheville transit system, making sure our roads are designed to get all commuters to their destinations safely, and building housing on corridors with supportive infrastructure close to resources so people can spend more time with their families instead of stuck in long commutes. Affordability includes keeping utility costs in check through continued accountability for fair water rates while securing our water system and leveraging for renewable energy options to address rising electricity costs. And it means supporting local businesses focus on living wages and workplace development, not just workforce development. And the city can do that by ensuring that we're paying living wages to our own staff. We had a really challenging budget season this year where we struggled to even come up with $18.25 an hour for our firefighters, and we failed to do that, even though the cost of living is $22.10 based on the cost of housing in the Asheville region. So that we know that our workers, our sanitation workers, our public safety responders, our parks and rec staff that are interacting with our community and with our kids are driving like 45 minutes to get to work. So we have to do better by setting an example of paying living wages for our own staff, by incentivizing with tax incentives and land, bringing good employers to our community, and then setting that standard and supporting with the affordable housing that working people need. I was the only person to support the Beloved Tiny Home Village. I'm really excited about the Haywood Street Congregation's building of affordable housing. We need to help them reach success and duplicate that over and over and over again.
Great. Thank you so much. For the next question, we'll go Kevin Frazier, then Ken Roney, then Bo Hess. So North Carolina, as y'all all know, is not a home rule state. So what that means is the state government in general and the General Assembly in particular can take a number of actions that affect the city, frankly, more actions than they could in many other states. And then you add to that there's, let's be honest, a difference of perspective about how government should work in the city of Asheville versus the General Assembly often. So how should the city council approach local state relations in this bigger environment? So how should the city council approach local state relations in this environment where the state has so much power? Kevin Frazier, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Chris. So I have worked in public higher education for 25 years. And in that role, I've had to walk down the middle of the aisle, working with both Democrats and Republicans. Sometimes one's in power, some years the other's in power. But in the end, I always believe there's a way to focus the attention on our students so that we can find some common ground to take care of our students and do really good work so that they get a great education in North Carolina. I think that work is completely applicable to the work of cities and the General Assembly, in that we can be on different sides of the aisle, but I'm confident we can find common ground in the middle without either of us throwing away our values. Let's find the things that unite us and bring us together, that we can do good work to serve the citizens of Asheville. I think we have to play well with others even when we disagree with them, and that it's important that we build that relationship with the General Assembly and find the common ground. There are things that Asheville has a legacy of right now that are really troubling. You know, Asheville cannot annex. We're one of the few cities in North Carolina that can't expand through annexation, and that really hurts us when it comes to growing the tax base in a thoughtful, reasonable way moving forward. You know, I'm really concerned about some legislation that keeps popping up about ending the ability of cities to manage regulations around short-term rentals. I think that would be devastating for Asheville if there was no control over short-term rentals in our particular case. So I think we can do that work across the aisle, find common grounds, and then still also argue and be frustrated and battle it out on the things that we don't agree about.
Okay. Kim Roney, to you next, please.
So what I'm hearing is that we're concerned about a contentious relationship with the state. But it has been my absolute pleasure to serve the people of Asheville and to be a regional leader. In some ways, I've seen that we're able to unify our shared work to take better care of our people in our mountain home has been through my service on the Metropolitan Planning Organization. The MPO oversees the budget plans and policies for our state maintained roads, whether it's along the corridors of our neighborhoods or their roads that connect people that are commuting in Western North Carolina. So that's one of the areas where I see some potential for unification. I also have seen the benefit of building statewide coalition. So some examples of that look like our LGBTQ plus inclusive non-discrimination ordinance, which provided protections for veterans and people who are pregnant and for natural hair status. And that meant building coalition across the state, across cities and rural areas to take better care of people. So if there are things that we hear, oh, we can't do that because the state doesn't allow us to. Well, are we doing what we can? And so I think that sometimes we are going to have to say, you know what? That's not right. We have to stand up for the people that we represent and have courage. And hopefully, as we're having those conversations about what the outcomes are and the wins around making our roads safe, providing an effective public safety response when we're in crisis, delivering on affordable housing, those kinds of things shouldn't be polarizing. These are human issues. And so I think that we can do a better job fighting for the people of Asheville, getting our wins, and then building statewide coalition to deliver for all the people of North Carolina.
Great. Thank you so much. And we'll go to Bo Hess for the last word on the subject.
So in order to navigate the challenges of home rule, or Dillon's rule, I believe it's called, but we are going to have to use strategic collaboration and partnership. And a lot of that means working very closely with our state representatives and legislators and building those collaborative relationships and rapport. It's about finding common ground and moving towards, again, practical solutions that benefit not only Asheville, because as Kim said, the things that we do in Asheville actually benefit and affect all of Western North Carolina. And to that effect, it's about leveraging those relationships with other municipalities on common ground for the things that we need from Raleigh that we need to move forward on. It's about public education campaigns and mobilizing the public and getting people involved in what's going on and letting them know that we would be doing these and be focused on these priorities. It could move faster if it were not for some things in Raleigh. It's also mobilizing our public and private partnerships and working across ideological lines, again, towards those things that affect the working class: affordability, healthcare, making sure that we have safe streets and we have clean air and water. And also proactively advocating for the needs of Asheville at the state and federal level. And I am excited to do those things when I'm elected Asheville City Council in 2024.
All righty. Thank you very much. For the next question in order, we'll go Kim Roney, then Bo Hess, and then Kevin Frazier. So this is a sort of a simply worded question, but a complex one, I think, in the answer. What is the role of tourism in growing a better, more livable Asheville? And we'll start with Kim Roney.
So my great-grandmother was born here in 1910. And I've had the opportunity to read some of my great-grandparents' work. They were educators and health workers in the region across Western North Carolina. And this is at a time when there was a different kind of tourism, that people were coming here to get well from tuberculosis and other ailments. And what I saw as we're looking at this 100-year cycle is an over-focus on tourism, not enough resources to keep stable infrastructure, displacement of Indigenous and working people, and then an economic collapse. And we're at that part of the 100-year cycle again with failure on keeping up with our infrastructure and displacement of our neighbors. And so what I really would hope for us to do is learn from the mistakes of the past, that we must be a welcome place for the people who live and work here. And then it will be a welcome place for people to visit. And it can have a great impact on our economy, but we also need to diversify and make sure we have a stable economy. That's why it's important to, for me, when we're looking at what kind of jobs we can bring in, is not just extractive jobs where our tax dollars are leaving our community, where we see, like, for example, our hotel occupancy tax being spent on advertising and tourism, but manufacturing jobs, what kind of employers can we bring back to the region so that we can invest in home ownership, and have generational wealth built in families? And then what is the impact of that? Well, I want to focus on what our community needs moving forward. And when I see how hotel land use has kind of taken the main stage, I worry for the next generation. And so that's why I'm focused on what we need for today, which is taking care of our infrastructure, building affordable housing, and working to repair past harms.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to Bo Hess.
So tourism puts Asheville on the map and gives us a brand and identity. We just saw with AVL Fest, we had a wonderful celebration of Asheville's arts and music culture here in Asheville, bringing businesses and people and celebration and, quite frankly, joy to Asheville, and much needed joy to the world, and spending money in our local businesses. And I remember going through school, and I was a server downtown, and working. And I remember $100 a day was like a really good day. And boy, I would work 10, 12 hours a day for that $100. But I counted on people coming in. I counted on Asheville being on the map. And a couple of things that tourism means for me: it means focusing on the things that I'm so focused on in this campaign, making sure that we have safe and clean streets that are inviting for all people, for all walks of life, whether you're living under the bridge or you're living in Biltmore Forest or you're coming in from out of town, making sure that we're inclusive and we're taking care of all people, making sure that we have open businesses, making sure that workers have a place to park and that they are given a living wage, right? Because happy workers mean happy tourists. Making sure that we are focused on addressing our mental health and addiction issues, and making sure that every single Ashevillean has access to the services that they need. Making sure that we're preserving our environment and enhancing our green spaces and community centers, and uplifting our artistic art. I see a little counter. I don't know what that means, but it keeps counting down. But in enhancing and uplifting our artistic community and making sure that they're taken care of by affordable housing, community and art spaces to do their art and share their art with the world, and making sure that we are focused on everything that makes Asheville, Asheville.
Great. Thank you so much, Bo. And next we'll go to Kevin Frazier.
Thanks, Chris. Asheville is first and foremost for its residents. That's what we do all this work for. It's a great benefit to also be such a wonderful community that folks want to come and be part of the action with us. And if we do that right in a good, managed, and balanced way, then it's going to be successful for us. Last year, tourism brought in $2.88 billion to the Asheville economy. And that was local money. That was money left behind. Very little of it, compared to other industries, actually leaves the area. And so that's a benefit to Asheville. When you look at the properties, hotel properties included, that pay property taxes and sales taxes, that's a significant portion of Asheville's tax revenue that we use to pay the bills. Now, the balance on that is there are certain coastal communities and even some other mountain communities that we don't want to be like. We don't want tourism to be the central part of our economy. We don't want everything to be driven by tourism. It's been said that when you build a great community, then you're attractive to visitors as well. So I think we want to be sure that we are getting the right infrastructure in place that supports locals and visitors alike, and that we've got a good balance of how those revenues and resources are moving into our economy. When we look at the picture on the whole, tourism can be good for Asheville, but we can absolutely get off the rails with it as well. I think we've got smart folks in place that can make sure we are spending our dollars for the sake of our residents, and then we build that great community that folks want to visit as well.
Great. Thank you so much. And just sort of a technical point of information. Yes, if you're listening, you can't see this, but there is, with about 30 seconds left, a counter that comes up on the screen and counts down from 30 all the way down to 0. So that's the indication that the 2 minutes, you got 30 more seconds left to wrap things up for your 2 minutes of your answer. And so for the next question, we will start with Bo Hess, and then we'll go to Kevin Frazier, and then we will go to Kim Roney. Asheville, of course, as y'all know well, and as listeners know well, made national news for its stance on reparations. But what should the future of reparations in Asheville look like? And I'm particularly interested in your answer and what the role of the city council should be, if any, in what that looks like. And so with that, we will go to Bo Hess.
I believe that and am proud to live in a city that has been so forward thinking in this. And the reparations committee has come back with their recommendations. And regardless of the reparation money, we should move forward in the types of things as a city council that bring equity to all of the people of Asheville. So in my mind, I'm running this campaign kind of from a mental health lens. And I'm thinking, density, diversity, and connection, right? So how can we increase the density of affordable housing, scholarship funds? How can we make sure that Black folk in our community are owning businesses and thriving? How do we make sure that they are in the table of power, right? And that their voice is being heard. So it's about making sure that we are living in safe housing. It's making sure that we have safe streets. It's also making sure that we have fair wages. And it's doing these things now, not waiting. And we have the political will. We just have to elect the right people into office. So whether or not we have the money, I think council can start working on these priorities and these values right here and right now to make sure that we're delivering for the people of Asheville.
Great. Thank you so much. And Kevin Frazier.
Unfortunately, in some circles, folks are trying to frame equity as a 4-letter word. Equity is not a 4-letter word. That is about making sure we're taking care of all people in a reasonable and equal way. The work that's going on and has been going on for the past couple of years with the Reparations Commission is really powerful. I mean, that Asheville would ever step up to do that work is, I think, an exemplar to so many other cities. The commission right now has been asking for time, a little bit of extended time to finish the work. I think they need to be given that time. We didn't get to this point in our city's history over a couple years. It was hundreds of years. And if they need a few more months, I think it's important to do that. For me, I'm really going to be listening for folks that have lived experiences. My background, many of these experiences aren't what I went through as a child and a young adult and as a grown-up. And so I'm looking to the elders in my community and folks with lived experiences for the guidance as we move forward. There's going to definitely be some challenges, and I think it'll be next year's commission or next year's city council that will really do a lot of the work of the reparations commission. Asheville this year passed a deficit budget and had to dip into savings. So let's not pretend that there's a giant pot of money to suddenly fix all this. It's going to take some really hard decisions along the way. but we've got to make those. I think failure would be to have the work of the commission be just simply filed as a report on the shelf. There's opportunity, and we'll just have to make hard choices as a council next year to figure out the priority of the plan and continue to work with the leadership of the Reparations Commission to determine what's the order of things and what do we need to address first. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. And Kim Roney.
So first of all, I'll start with saying that I believe that reparations are necessary and possible. We have a history and current situation of our neighbors being harmed by systemic racism, by the budget plans and policies of the city and the county. And I'm so appreciative of our community leaders who have initiated the reparations process, to have been able to be one of the people voting to seat our historic Community Reparations Commission. And I'm really thankful that we see the recommendations coming forward on what healing and repair looks like. For those who are new to the conversation about reparations, they have 5 impact focus areas: criminal justice, education, economic development, housing, and healthcare. If we can both listen to the harms that were caused through urban renewal, redlining, and systemic racism in those 5 impact focus areas, invest in repair through land and resources like cash resources, then I think we could have a hopeful future for all of our young people, for all of our families, and for our community going forward. And on August 27th, at the City Council meeting, we'll be hearing from members of the Community Reparations Commission on an extension to continue the work and bringing forward their recommendations. But you also asked us about what is the role of a council member. And what I've found as a council member is we have a role to both support the Community Reparations Commission. But we also have a role in listening to the community on what accountability looks like. So I expect that as the recommendations come forward, we'll also need to continue community engagement around this to make sure that the reparations work and the outcomes reflect the deep need in our community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And for the next question, we will take an order, be Kevin Frazier, then Kim Roney, then Bo Hess. Parks and Recreation often gets ignored in forums like these when we talk about local politics, but I mean, it's kind of a shame because this is the primary way in which a lot of citizens engage with their government and with their local governments in particular. What does Parks and Rec do well in Asheville? What could they do better? And perhaps most importantly, what is the role of City Council in making sure that these needs are met? Kevin Frazier.
Thanks, Chris. I think Parks and Rec's doing great work to assess what do we have right now in Asheville and what do we need. That report's just coming forward and is a great opportunity to dig into what the future of Parks and Recreation should be in Asheville. We have some really lovely spaces that folks can gather in. They're well kept, they're safe, great places for folks to gather and to enjoy Asheville. I think one of our challenges in Asheville is, we look out on the horizon every day and we see these beautiful green mountains and we feel ourselves nestled in this wonderful green Appalachia. But what it can do at times is cause us to not realize we don't have as robust a park system as a city of our size should have. And that I think we've relied on people to go without the city to go do some of that recreation and haven't provided as much in town. And so, for example, Buncombe County is looking about turning some property they own on Cox Avenue into affordable housing, which is great. And I've been having some conversations with the commissioners to say, hey, if that's the path you're going down, can you use some of that property to create some green space nearby? Otherwise, if we don't have places that families can go, that parents can take their kids to go to the park within an easy walk, if they've got to get in a car, on a bus to get outside of the city, then we're going to then that affordable housing is going to be really more focused on single people and retired folks, and we want it to be available for everybody. So I think that that's our opportunity to grow what we've got I am glad to see that the Malvern Hills pool is being focused on for the bond referendum. I'll be blunt to say I wish we had a path that pool could be opened this year and some minor repairs with still that being on the long-term path. It's nearly a 100-year-old pool. It absolutely needs that work, but I hate that it's offline for a couple of years before we're going to be able to finish it up.
Great. Thank you so much. Kim Roney.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Parks and Rec. Number one, I'm really excited about the Recreate Asheville plan. It's coming forward with the leadership of our Parks and Rec Director, D. Tyrell McGirt, and his team. A 10-year plan will be, yes, another set of recommendations. It will need to be prioritized, and it will need to be backed up with real dollars if it's going to have the right outcomes, right? So on my website, kimroneyforasheville.com, scroll to the bottom, and you'll see blog. And in the blog, I've written a piece on public third spaces and rebuilding the Malvern Hills pool. I support rebuilding the Malvern Hills pool. It's a community-wide asset and historic landmark in West Asheville. But also when I see who's using Malvern Hills pool in the past before it was closed this year, I know that one of the reasons it was so full of children from all over the city is because we lost the public pool at Walton Street Pool, which was invested in by the historic Black neighborhood of the South Side back when our pools were segregated. So I think it's really important to talk about the benefits of public third spaces. We're talking about parks and libraries, community centers, and gardens. It's where you can have affordable activities. They're accessible locations for residents to gather and connect and build relationships. Key to neighborhood resiliency, which is a critical platform of mine. And it's also, those spaces beyond the obligations of work and school where you can build community. But then, of course, you're going to hear a lot of us on council talk about our big dreams and aspirations. And then, of course, dun, 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 how do you pay for it? So on our November 5th ballot, along with local races like the Board of Education, City Council, and County Commission, you're also going to see an opportunity to support our bonds. So if you live in the city of Asheville, you'll have an opportunity to invest in Parks and Rec bonds. This will be a way that we can all pitch in together and leverage the city's good credit rating to invest in those public resources.
Great. Thank you very much. And Bo Hess.
Yes, I second everything that Councilwoman Kim Roney said about an integrated and connected city where we can exchange ideas and meet people that don't cost anything, that build connection within our city, are key to mental health and resiliency. I can't tell you how many friendships I have started out at the parks, at the dog park, walking on the wonderful trails, bike riding. And we need to, number one, invest in our people. Make sure that our Parks and Rec staff are paid a living wage and make sure that they can live comfortably in Asheville. Number two, invest in long-term planning and strategic planning 10, 15 years down the road. That's why this new Parks and Rec plan is so amazing. I also hear a lot that sometimes it's the parks aren't accessible to people with certain disabilities. So making sure that we're ADA compliant, making sure that we have more trash cans along trails and we're reducing litter. We're increasing volunteer programs and we are having city hosted events in our beautiful parks. And of course, finding new spaces to create and enhance green spaces where we can gather. This is so important for community resiliency. I do want to say clarify a couple of things. One, I'm not sure that the Asheville City Council created a deficit budget. By law, and in North Carolina, you can't run a city on a deficit. So I want to clarify that. And then two, the UDO, sure, we could, upend it, but really the facts is that the council is having trouble just modifying just very simple pieces of it. So what are practical solutions that we can do? And that is what this campaign is about, not overhauling whole systems, but working towards practical solutions so that we can provide positive impacts in the here and now.
Chris, you're on mute.
Well, almost did this perfectly. But I think that answer opened up a great opportunity for our first and our last rebuttal opportunity that we'll have today for the debate. So Bo Hess raised a couple of concerns at the end that I think some of the other folks might want to respond to. So we'll just jump right back in order before we close out here. So we'll do some rebuttal there to Kevin Frazier, to Kim Roney, and then to Bo Hess.
Yeah, if I misspoke about going into a deficit budget, of course, city can't have a deficit budget, but the city can go into its savings account to pay for its budget. And that's exactly what's happening for 24-25, to the tune of well over $8 million. We're in a time, despite inflation, of relative economic prosperity. And I'm deeply concerned we're not holding enough money back for the hard times. There was a tax increase made, but there was also some really great points made by council members to look at doing budget cuts that didn't happen. And so all of that then is going to pass on to next year's city council. Just to make up for what's being pulled out of savings this year, we're talking about an over almost a 4.5 cent increase to property tax based on the current frameworks. And so it's important that we got to take care of our folks. And I was really pleased that council made sure that they were increasing the pay for not only our public safety teams, but fire and police, but also for all city employees. We want to retain great staff so that they're there for years and can do really good work for the city of Asheville. I think, though, that we've got to be able to do it in a framework that is sustainable for the long term. There are so many cities getting in economic trouble today because they don't have enough money to pay the bills. The other part of that is thoughtfully working with builders and developers, building commercial, residential that adds to our tax base. We are not growing physically as a city in terms of our city limits, but we can sure go up. And part of that going up is to increase that value and increase the tax revenues. And the balance of all that can let us be prosperous in Asheville.
Okay. Thank you. Kim Roney?
So this is the second year in a row that we have dipped into the general fund balance, which effectively works as a savings account to balance our budget. And this year, the budget passed 4-3. I was one of the people who voted against it. It did not include 1825 for our firefighters, and it perpetuated huge wage disparity in City Hall. And it included a small tax increase, which I think we're going to need to talk about our resources moving forward, but it didn't have to be that way. So once again, at kimroneyforasheville.com, scroll down to blog, and you'll see Councilmember Roney's budget analysis, where I worked with council members Antoinette Mosley and Shanika Smith on an alternative budget that would have provided every city staff member with a raise and a minimum of $41,920 a year, which would have been a minimum of $20.15 an hour. It would have included more than $50,000 salary for APD. It would have gotten our firefighters to $18.25 an hour, and it would have done it without a tax increase using our existing resources, because we know that the county tax reval is going to mean some additional resources. And though it would have created some compression issues, which we still have compression issues with this budget, we were hoping that we would have a long-term strategy for wage and compensation for our staff so we can recruit and retain the best people to provide the quality, equitable public services our community deserves. So once again, it didn't have to be that way. We presented it to the council. Our agenda item got skipped. It was really bad political theater, but ultimately for me, it looks like moving forward. So as a member of your Policy, Finance, and Human Resources Committee for the City of Asheville, I've asked that we start with wage and compensation instead of leaving it at the end of the budget cycle this year.
Thank you. And Bo Hess?
Yes, and these are the types of things that I love getting into the nitty-gritty about. And yes, I do think we could have done this budget in a much smarter way. And I also would have voted against this budget because we could have, first of all, we did not get our first responders and our firefighters to what they were asking. That is the bottom line. We have to pay the people who are showing up for us every single day. That is just an absolute must and a priority for me. And quite frankly, we need working class people. I'm the only person in this race who doesn't own a big business or isn't an attorney that's not an incumbent. We need working class people in this race who knows how to budget and knows, quite frankly, what the value of a dollar is, right? And that, quite frankly, is what a savings account is to dip in when we need it, and then you put it back when you have it. But there was an alternative way to get there, and I am looking forward to, when I am elected, having those hard, difficult conversations, getting to a compromise, and making sure that our public workers and our city staff are paid and taken care of, and that we're reducing the tax burden, not increasing the tax burden on the residents of Asheville. Go to electbohess.com. I look forward to seeing everybody out on the campaign trail. And thank you so much, Dr. Cooper and WPVM, for this opportunity. It's been awesome.
Great. I'd like to thank all three candidates for coming today and for sharing their vision for Asheville and really for the region. I'd like to thank WPVM for providing this opportunity in this space. And I want to thank you, the listener, for exercising your citizenship rights and responsibilities in the best way possible.
Thank you, everyone. And stay tuned tomorrow for part 2 of the City Council Candidate Forum.